What if we lived in a country that allowed every child an equal opportunity for proper education? What if every child didn't feel discriminated against just because of how much money they have or the color of their skin? What if we had more qualified teachers in our schools and less people who just need the money? What if? Education inequality is a steadily progressive issue amongst children of all ages in the United States and will not go away without aggressive action. Education inequality began to take form in 1896 in Plessy v. Ferguson, when the Supreme Court ruled that schools be segregated between African Americans and white students in the South. Adam Gamaran, a research analyst in Wisconsin, deduces that one of the major reasons for education inequality is the family's socioeconomic background. White children tend to have parents with a higher level of education and income than African Americans do. Racial differences in the achievement of these students are the direct cause of the family's poverty level, unemployment, and overall upbringing. Recent research suggests that at the age of 3, children in poverty tend to have smaller vocabularies than their peers and a harder time sorting and organizing information. The responsibility of academic achievement has now been put into the hands of parents, teachers, administrators, and even the students, while federal programs such as this continue to be very difficult to change because of heavy rules and regulations. American cities account for 3 out of every 4 people living in poverty on less than $1 a day, most of who are forced to survive in horrible, unsanitary conditions. But why do the poor seem to gravitate towards cities? One of the reasons is that the rich usually like to buy a lot of land and therefore choose to live where land is cheaper, in the suburbs. The second reason is that only cities supply public transportation, a way of moving large quantities of people from place to place for a small pay. And so the overall dilemma to education inequality is the fact that certain schools do not have enough money to pay for the resources they need to supply proper education to their students. In order to figure out why some schools are unable to pay for supplies and resources, while other schools are, the difference in federal distribution must first be established. On average in Pennsylvania, $12,715 is given to school districts at a 0% poverty level, $12,020 at 10%, $11,362 at 20%, and $10,741 at 30%. Pennsylvania has an 84% ratio between high and low poverty districts and is then considered to be a funded state. In other words, poor districts are receiving less funding than wealthy districts. In my explanation of a possible solution to help solve education inequality, I will show how some funding from wealthier districts could be transferred to poor districts all throughout America. In this example, I'm using Philadelphia City School District as the example of a poor district, which has 244 schools, and Central Bucks School District as an example of a wealthier district, which currently has 23 schools. Now, every district in America has funding from 3 different sources. They're getting it from their local source, the state, and the federal government. So currently, Philadelphia City schools are getting $8.6 million, and CBSD schools are getting $12.9 million. Now, let's say I were to transfer just $25 million from the state source and giving it into the Philadelphia City schools. So I'm transferring $25 million. That increases how much each school is getting by $100,000, or $8.71 million. And that's decreasing how much each CBSD school is getting to $11.8 million. Now, you can see how these numbers are already much closer, and let's say we were to transfer even more than $25 million, they will just continue to get closer, which will help alleviate the gap between the wealthier schools and the poorer schools, allowing poorer schools to pay for the resources and supplies they need to help educate the students better. A second portion of this dilemma that could also be worked on is the lack of family support that still exists at the home. Poverty and unemployment are major factors that contribute to the distractions found outside of school, more so with families in city districts and those in poorer areas. I believe that new institutions, such as family counseling centers, should be readily available in these areas to teach parents how to properly support their children in and out of school, and teach the children how to work with their parents to create a more loving and less threatening home environment. The following list explains the several effects to these solutions if they were implemented in this country. In my letter to Congress, I will explain my plan to transfer the funding from the federal government of wealthier districts to school districts that are still financially suffering. This transfer shall only occur if the wealthier district is still able to maintain their integrity after the process and the poor district is significantly assisted. I will also explain the need for more therapists that specialize in family counseling, where families are suffering from severe means of stress. In general, I will make it clear that if Congress decides to participate, America will move one step closer in minimizing education inequality. I will also need to speak out in front of our district to explain why a decrease in our funding is necessary. It is unfair that while these schools cannot afford a renovation, supplies, or qualified teachers, schools in this district have luxuries beyond comparison. The adults in this community, and others throughout America, need to realize that this funding transfer will help equalize all schools. This dilemma can be solved, but we need to work as a nation in order to do so. No child should ever feel discriminated against in their school, community, home, or country. Let's work hard and united to bring this country to education equality.